A lot of people will be joining us from other parts of the globe, more exotic parts than the Bronx, New York, which is where I am sweltering currently. Um, Welcome to our August Spirit Space gathering, where we are going to talk about all things extrasensory perception today. So, I we have like nearly 100 people registered, so I know a lot of them are going to just watch the recording, but we'll just give it another few minutes so that we're not having people pinging into the room in the middle of conversations, because people are still coming in. So I see just good morning to everybody in the chat room. We've got Claudia from Vancouver. Good morning, Vancouver. That's on the West Coast, isn't it? Yeah. So good morning to you. Griff from Denmark, Lula from Devon, who I know, Lula, where are you? There you are. Mary from Colorado, all over the place. Elizabeth from Switzerland. Where have I gone? Oh, it's jumping back. Marin County, California. Marin County is Northern California, is it? Marin County? Yeah. Priya from India. Hello, Priya, all the way from India. Melanie from Vancouver, Diane from the Bay Area, California. So Marin County and the Bay Area must be fairly close together, are they? Well, California's so massive, like close together is relative, isn't it? Dee from Massachusetts, Catherine from Nebraska. Hello, Captain, I haven't seen you in a while. Is it Issy? Issy? Issy or Issy? Issy? Sorry, I have to unmute you. Sorry. EC. There you go. EC. EC. Issy. 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 Where'd you go? No, I've lost you on the list now. Cayman Islands. Very exotic. And Mary from the Bay Area. Two people from the Bay Area. Jennifer from Vancouver Island. Here's Nancy coming in the door. I'm actually. Can you hear that racket behind me? Yeah, it's the cats. Let me just grab them and stash them in another room. I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. Okay. That's the cat safely put away. Phoenix, Arizona. My goodness, it must be hot there today, is it? We've got Judy from Minneapolis. So people from everywhere. New Mexico. Trisha from New Mexico as well. So some people in colossal amount of heat. So I feel like I should not be complaining about the humidity here that we're sloshing around in, and Tucson, Arizona. A few people from Arizona. It's very hot out there. Right. So, as I said, we had nearly 100 people register, which means I've got about 150 questions already in my massive spreadsheet here. But I've kind of gone through them and grouped them together. So I won't answer everybody's questions individually, but I'll just kind of answer them thematically in the interests of time. So I wanted to talk to you today about ESP. Extrasensory perception, for a couple of reasons. So I know one of the questions that a lot of people sent in was there a difference between ESP and psychic abilities? And the truth is, psychic abilities, ESP, anything that is beyond our normal five senses is extrasensory. Right? It's extra, so it makes it extrasensory. So psychic abilities are, of course, extrasensory because we use the clairs, and we use different, mediumship is extrasensory, healing is extrasensory, remote viewing, anything that is beyond our five senses, our normal five senses, is extrasensory. So then, like, the question is, why am I talking about extrasensory perception instead of, say, psychic development? And part of that is because I want to get back to the original term, the original meaning of psychic in the Latin was psychikos, which was of the soul. And I feel that I've been in this world a long time. We're sort of moving through this world, and we're getting farther and farther away from psychism or extrasensory perception or any of these abilities where we're connecting into the superconscious. Whatever word you want to use to describe that, it could be God, the divinity, the source, the Tao, whatever, the superconscious, whatever your word is for that unifying power of all that is, we seem to have gotten very, very far away from that. And within psychic development, I've just noticed over the years, it's become more like doing little tricks, like swaying pendulums and, reading auras and it's lacking the depth that we should have, we can have, and was embodied in its original meaning. So to sort of move away from all these associations, I want to come back to extrasensory perception, because extrasensory perception is not something we grab from out there and take in. It's not like, it's something that arises from within us. And that's where the starting point for all of our extrasensory work should be, is what arises from within us. Not learning. I teach tarot, as many of you know, so I'm not sort of saying anything about this, but what I'm saying is that we need to step back and start coming from all of this work from a much deeper place and a much more soulful place, so that we're not just doing, let's do predictions. And, I gave up doing psychic readings a long time ago, because every other session was, am I going to get married? When am I going to get married? Or should I change my job? And it was just became just people coming to a psychic to make decisions for them about their lives with some degree of certainty. But we all know, and as a practicing Buddhist, I know, certainty is an illusion, right? And I always say there's no point in doing a prediction if the person doesn't do anything about it. There's no point in saying, yes, you're going to get married next May, if the person never leaves their house, unless they're going to marry the Amazon delivery guy or something, pizza guy, something, right? So predictions are predicated upon action, which is predicated upon intuitive guidance. So no matter what way you look at, and then if you're being guided by your intuition, who needs the predicated predictions? Your intuition is guiding you. The other thing too I find with psychism that's happened is that we have become, the psychics have been given a power. People perceive psychics to have a power greater than them, which is not true. Everybody has extrasensory perception. Some people just do the work to hone it. Some people don't do the work and they just make a good go of it. And, but what I really want to do is to come back to finding that power within us and to developing the power within us for our own soul's growth, not to be able to, you can go do my tarot course if you want afterwards, but what I'm saying is that we want to start from the foundation of what is our own spiritual development. And that's the first question. And so for me, extrasensory perception becomes something we develop within, rather than a bunch of tools that we learn to, let me read a pendulum, let me do this, let me read, let me throw out rune stones or anything like that. Now, I have the greatest respect for all of those ancient traditions, but only when it is all arising by the guidance of that extrasensory perception that is arising within. The tools themselves are only as good as your own inner development. And so what I wanted to do with extrasensory perception was come back to where we're really starting to bring the emphasis on soul growth, on spiritual development back into this work, so that our motivation for doing this work is spiritual. It's not for hanging out a shingle, and getting, $20 at a reading or something like that. I really just feel and I've said this to those of you who are doing taking mediumship with me know this. I say this all the time. There is so much power and potential in the spirit, and there is so much power and potential in our spirit as an inseparable part of the spirit of all that is, that I really want to start bringing people back into that fundamental awareness and the presence of that fundamental connection. So that's how you are, that's how you live your life, that's how you be in your day. living in that place. Not going, running around frantic all day and say, oh, let me whip out. So I know somebody who couldn't make a decision about taking out a pendulum. And the pendulum is influenced by the muscles in your fingers. So I don't teach it, you know. So you can actually, whether you're aware of it or not, control what's happening with your pendulum to give you the answer you want, basically. So if you can give yourself the answer you want, why do you need a pendulum? Just listen to the intuition, right? So often we use these tools because we feel like, oh, I don't trust my intuition, or maybe I doubt my intuition, or maybe I don't have any extrasensory perception. So let me use these tools. There's no magic in those tools. Those tools are tools, and they're only as good as the person using them. And if you are developed in that way, you don't need them at all. You know, I mean, it's nice to get a little picture. I love the odd oracle card, I must say. I do love the pictures and stuff. But I don't feel my entire ability to understand the message of the card relies in the card. I know it comes from my own interpretation. So that's what I want to bring this back to. That's why I'm calling it extrasensory perception. Plus, extrasensory perception is a field of study that has gained a lot of credence. So we know Gary Schwartz studying it, Dean Radin has been studying it, the Virginia School of Perceptual Studies. I think there's somebody in the room, Virginia, you know, they have taken, and they're doing this. The remote viewing is extrasensory perception. The CIA, I mean, I'm launching a new course shortly in psychic detection. A huge component of it is remote viewing. And decided that the CIA ran the whole Stargate program on remote viewing during the Cold War, you know. So even though a lot of people won't admit to a lot of stuff, there has been quite a lot of credence given to it. But it requires very precise training. And I feel that the way psychic development has been taught these days is very, anything goes, you know. And so I want to really come back to really being able to hone your skills, hone your abilities. Start from a place of sitting within the power and the spirit and developing your connection and your awareness and your trust in your part of the Tao, the superconscious, the divine, whatever. We start there. And from there, we start to express that using our extrasensory perception for our own benefit, for the benefit of other people, for the benefit of mankind, right? What we don't want to be doing is using these skills to allow other people have other people allow us make decisions for them. So that's really what I want to get away from, you know, with this. So the emphasis is very, very much on your own soul's growth. So I'm using the term ESP, or extrasensory perception, in the old Latin way psychism used to be used. And the reason I'm calling it ESP and not psychism is because there are so many associations with psychism. There's so much sort of anything goes. It's like scattergun. And I really want to come back to doing real, proper, disciplined training to go hand in hand with your own spiritual growth and development. So does that answer that question for you all? Yes? Good? All right. If you've got any questions, you can just use the little reaction there at the bottom and just put your hand up, because I can't see everybody in the room, and so it'll bring you up to the top of the window for me. So a couple of things just in terms of housekeeping. If you have a question, just turn on your little hand. You put your little hand up in the reactions, brings your window right up to the top, and I can see that as we're going if you have any questions. What I want to be able to do this evening, or this morning, this evening, wherever, everywhere, today, time is an illusion. We'll start there. I'm just going to fly through some of the questions that you guys sent to me, because there are some people who sent questions from inhospitable time zones who are having a little snooze as we chat. And just an FYI, it's hard for me to monitor the chat as well. So I'll come to the chat later because I don't want to get sidetracked. But I want to just fly through some of these questions. Some people ask very pertinent questions and lots of people ask the same questions. So I'm going to just go through some of those fairly quickly for you. And let's put questions in the chat after this, because a lot of the questions coming up in the chat were already asked in the registration form. All right. So a few people asked me, is there a difference between ESP and psychic abilities? And we've already talked about that. One thing what I do want to do before we finish this morning is I want to just go through some of these questions, address some of your concerns, but I also want to talk about I've designed a 5-week course specifically to teach you the twofold approach to ESP that I've just been talking about. And in case I forget, because I always forget these things and I don't have any tech support in the room, it's just me, so no doubt I'll forget. There is a $50 early bird on the 5-week course that expires tomorrow morning, British time, GMT. There are very limited places in this class and half of them already gone, so just bear that in mind. So if you do want to do the class, I'll show you the course quickly before we get out. If you want to do that, just bear that in mind. We've only got a few places left, but there is $50 off the early bird, and that's valid. I've got loads of people saying, can you make it until tomorrow? Because of the time zones. So yes, it will be until tomorrow, right? So if you want to do that. And I think that was all I wanted to do. Oh, and one thing I always forget, every month we do these meetings, there's a survey that comes up at the end when I end the meeting. And I always forget to mention it. So everyone just scatters. And then I go, oh, I forgot to mention the survey. So it's just a little survey just to see how we can help you better. If you have a minute, just do the survey at the end of the class, right? So I think that's all the housekeeping for today, I do believe. Right, so on with the questions. So we talked about the difference between ESP and psychic abilities already. So lots and lots of people ask me, how do I develop my ESP? What exercises can I do to enhance my ESP? All this sort of stuff. So obviously, I've designed an entire 4-week course, 5-week course around this. So I'm not going to be able to answer all these questions in this, but I do have some of them answered already. So the one thing I do want to do before we finish is spend about sort of 10-15 minutes doing a little practice, maybe in breakout groups. If you do want to be in a breakout group, you're going to need to put your camera on. I can't have people in breakout rooms talking to other people. I can't monitor when they don't know who they're talking to. So if you, at the end, we'll do breakout rooms. And if you want to stay for breakout rooms, stay, turn your camera on. And if you want to pop out, feel free to do that as well. If you have your rollers in, you don't want anybody seeing you this morning with your rollers in. So just that, we'll just do that at the end. So one thing I do want to say to the questions of how can I, lots of people are asking me very specific questions like what can I do to develop my clairsentience, my clairvoyance, all this sort of stuff. So what I am going to say is, first of all, you need practice, you need teaching, and you need to be with other people. So it's not something you can learn from a book. You can read a book till the cows come home if you want and be informed about it, but you really need proper teaching and you need proper people who understand what you're doing to practice with, which is why the classroom environment is ideal for this. And if you're doing it from recordings, for example, make sure that, because all the recordings for the class will be recorded, all the classes will be recorded, make sure you go find practice partners, say in spirit-based group, because you have to actually do the work. Just being told what to do is not going to develop your ESP, right? You actually need to get in and do the practices. So we're going to do some little practices this evening or this morning, whatever time it is. And we'll do those just before we finish up at the end. So that should be fun. All right. So one thing I just want to point out for a lot of people are saying, what kind of practices can I do? How can I improve it? Lots and lots of those questions and the related questions to that. How can I develop my clairs? So there are, if you are following me on social media on a regular basis, 2 or 3 times a week, little mini 90-second teachings go out. And some of them are literally that. What practice can I do to develop my clairvoyance? So you'll see those on Instagram and Facebook every week. So I would suggest, if you want to just follow those accounts, and you will, if you go to my website, they're all on the bottom of the website, and those little instructional videos, little how-tos come up on a fairly regular basis for clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience largely, right? So you can do those. The other thing is, and let me just show you this. So is anybody not a member of the Spirit Space web-based group? So in the Spirit Space web-based group, which is here on my website, you just go up here, you just register if you're not already a member. You've all disappeared on me. When you go down, I put loads and loads of resources here for people. So anybody asking me those questions, those very, very specific questions about how do I develop my ESP. First thing I'm going to say is come take a class with me so we can properly teach you. The second thing I'm going to say is if you've got very specific questions, like any extra tips and techniques, go to the Spirit Space group, right? Because in there, you've got like lots of guided practices and meditations. These are all free. And so you can pick what you want. So we've got lots of attunement practices, which is foundational to all of this work, is learning meditation, but also learning attunement, which is different from meditation. I talk about this a lot. And so there's lots of those there, and you can just have a noodle around and see what strikes your fancy. I also have loads and loads of workshops and talks that I've given over the eons on different aspects of this. So you could have a troll around, and because I'm not going to, obviously in today, I can't repeat and go into all of that again, hours of stuff there. And then a thing that might be very helpful to you is, this was an initiative I had last year where people used to send me in questions and I would answer them, do little mini video answers every month. And then I haven't had time at my doctorate, but there are still lots of responses up there. And most of those questions, like how can I do this and how can I do that, and why is this happening, why is that not happening, I've already answered here. So if you go to the responses page, there's a whole little playlist here, see that, of different questions I've already answered. So there are lots and lots of resources that I would recommend that you just avail of, because they are quite informative. And then, of course, you can pop into our Spirit Space Facebook group as part of our community. And if you want to practice any of the things that you've been reading about or learning, you can go in there and find a practice partner in there for that as well. It will be sympathetic. And then the one other thing I do want to mention here is I have recommended reading here in a bunch of different categories. So you can, if you were looking for some recommended reading on any given subject, you can just pop in there and check that out. All right, is that good? Is that helpful? Yes. All right, fab. So I'm going to skip over then the rest of these, like things like, how do you strengthen the gift? Well, I'll talk, we strengthen the gift by our attunement practices, by our actual technique practices, learning techniques and practicing them, practice, right? So lessons and practice, and lots of practice. Can never have too much of that. The best thing, honestly, is to come to a class where you can be monitored, where, like when these classes that I do live are very small. And they're very small so that I can monitor people. They're more like little mentorships. So I can monitor people and meet people where they are, because everybody's at a different stage. And somebody did ask that, can everybody develop ESP? Or are some people not able to? And what I will say is everybody has ESP already. You all have it already. Anytime you just have a gut feeling, or anytime you have, just a sense of, oh, that I'm not going down that dark alley, that doesn't feel right. That's extrasensory perception. That's your intuition. Everybody has it. That's why I was saying earlier, I want to get away from this idea that there is a psychic over there with some power greater than you. Nobody has a power greater than you. Some people just have more knowledge and more practice time put in. I will say there is, most of you who know me know, I don't consider any of this a gift. I'm gifted. I do believe people can be gifted, but that doesn't, so, and I say this is one of my favorite things, because I have absolutely no musical ability whatsoever, and I have such admiration for musicians. So I can go play chopsticks and somebody else can play a concerto. And so it's not that like the music is the gift, the ability within that is the gift. Do you know what I mean? So we're all on a grayscale. We just have it to different degrees. I will be first to say I probably wouldn't even be able to play chopsticks, to be honest. But, but we are all gifted. Everybody is gifted in some way or another. And so it's one of these things where I don't like to use the word gifted, because it sort of sets it out. Oh, you've got something so special. Well, we've all got the special thing. It's like, are you doing something special with your special thing? That's the question, right? So ESP, you are born with ESP. Everybody has ESP. If I was to ask all of you to sit down and go back over your entire life and pull up pull up 3 memories that somehow you just had a knowing or you just had a feeling. That's clairsentience, otherwise known as intuition. Everybody has it. And so developing it is something you can work at. And, yes, some people will be the concerto player and some people will be the chopsticks player, but everybody has it and everybody can develop it to the best of their own ability. So that's important, right? So please do not give other people power that you already have. I say that putting myself out of business, but there you go. Have to be ethical about it, right? So, well, I don't do psychic readings anyway. So, a couple of other things that came up. People were asking me about, and I want to make this very brief because I talk about this all the time. People talking about mediumship and ESP, right? We need extrasensory perception to do mediumship, but ESP in and of itself is not mediumship. Mediumship is a different, it's another layer, it's another energetic level, and it's another layer. So it's almost like ESP is the language and mediumship is a conversation, if that makes sense. So we use ESP to learn this language, and then we can use that to, if you want. I always say everybody has some mediumistic ability. Everybody has the ability to make one contact. Not everybody has the ability to make contact with complete strangers on demand. That's the concerto end of things, right? But everybody has the ability in one way, shape, or form, right, to do that. But ESP is about learning to hone and develop our own spiritual growth, our own spiritual development, and our extrasensory ability, whether that's in clairvoyance, clairaudience, telepathy, remote viewing, any of these things, right? So ESP does not cover mediumship. Mediumship is a whole separate teaching, and it's a whole separate way of approaching this. We need to develop these skills. When I started developing mediumship first, I studied with Glyn Edwards, the late Glyn Edwards, who was astounding. And the whole first year of the training was just developing psychic senses, just developing ESP, because that is the language. There's no point in trying to go out and have a conversation. No point in me going out and trying to have a conversation with a Chinese person, because I don't know the word of Chinese, right? So you learn the language first, then you learn how to have the conversation. So with ESP, this becomes very, very foundational if you want to continue on to do mediumship. You don't have to, but you do need to have this ability developed. You need to have the inner resources developed. You need to have the skills and understanding developed. But that's only if you want to go on to mediumship. If you don't have to, right? Let me see. Somebody asked me, why is it always foreboding? So, like, why is, I suppose, prophecy and so why is it foreboding? Anyone any ideas about that? Well, first of all, it's not always foreboding. But second of all, that is nothing to do with the extrasensory perception. That has got everything to do with the psychology of the practitioner. As a race, we anticipate bad things because that is hardwired into our ego to protect us. Right? We are always on the lookout for the tiger that might eat us, even though we have long since left tiger country. Right? Well, most of us. Well, somebody from India here, isn't they have tigers in India? But aside from that person, the rest of us don't live in tiger country, right? So, but we go around still, the ego doesn't understand that we have evolved beyond that, and it still thinks that there's something ready to maul us or eat us at any moment in time, which can be true in some places. And it actually can be true in the Bronx, though not from bears. But, but that's what the ego is designed to do, to protect us. So what does it do? It anticipates worst case scenarios all the time, thinking it will protect us like that. It's not going to say, wander out of the cave and bask in the glory of the sunshine. It's going to say, wander out of the cave and look furtively around for whatever's going to get you. And it still does that. So the foreboding or the prophecy, you ever notice that prophecy is always end of days, right? Why? Largely because, first of all, we tend to bring that upon ourselves, like we wonder why we're all going to drown because the ice caps melted without realizing it was our own fault, right? But the point I'm making is that it's only foreboding because that's how we perceive it, because that's what the ego is designed to do. But in and of itself, it's not. If we were able to get beyond that anxiety and fear and doubt, that wouldn't be happening at all. We'd be all seeing beautifully rosy futures. Right? Okay. So I won't be able to get through all of these 150 questions, and I do want to have some of you here now. So another person's asking me, one thing I do want to do, people are asking me, how can they use it to help them with difficult relationships, help them with this, help them with that? Again, when we work and develop our own extrasensory perception, we are by definition developing our intuition. And once we develop those skills and once we test them and practice them, and we start to build confidence in our abilities, then we start to build trust in our own intuition. And then we tend to listen to that. And then when some fab guy comes along and our little radar goes up and says, narcissist, we listen to it and we run, right? Or some fab guy comes along and you go, oh, soulmate, we listen to it and we stay, right? Sorry for the men in the room, but you can, not trying to be gender specific, but you know. So that's how we use this for guidance, but we don't come at it from, okay, how can I learn to get a better job? How can I learn to this? How can I learn to do that? How can I learn to this? You learn how to be present with the power of your spirit. And that becomes your guiding light. And the rest of it comes to you. It's as if you always running around trying to shake stuff out of trees. All right. So a few people were saying, that, so just in terms of the things that are involved in ESP that you don't normally get when you're doing psychic development is we do, there's, to me, ESP is much broader, it's much older, it's got less boundaries on it. We can do things like remote viewing, we can do things like telekinesis, moving things around. A bit hard on Zoom to do that, but we'll have experiment in the course. Takes the entire room full of energy to do that properly. We can do shamanic journeying. We can do dreams, and we can work with all of these different facets because it really unleashes the ability for the extra, for the super conscious. So we do use clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, the other clairs, but we also have things like, telepathy, understanding and learning the language of telepathy, and how we do these things. And this is what I love about ESP. It's much more experimental. We're not just sitting around learning little tools. We're actually really starting to develop this power and presence within and allowing it manifest in these ways. And there is precognition in ESP as well. And we can certainly play with that, but I always issue precognition with the caveat, it's only going to be cognitive if action is taken, right? So what else do we have here? Just scanning through this. So a few people asked me again about communicating with their own loved ones through the veil. And what I would say is absolutely developing any form of extrasensory perception immediately puts you right into, connected, plugged into the superconscious of which we are all part, of which your loved ones are part and you are part. So when you become more sensitive to that sort of superconscious, to that endless unified stream of consciousness, we are able to move within the same realm as our loved ones. So we become more sensitive to their presence. Now, this is not becoming sensitive to our own loved one's presence or our own loved one's signs or messages. It's not mediumship. That is having an eternal bond. And if you're interested, I do have, because a few people asked that, I have a masterclass called Eternal Bonds that's designed just to work with that understanding of how we recognize the presence of our loved ones. But the techniques, the skills, and the growth and the development that comes from extrasensory perception, again, really facilitates all of this kind of communication and presence. Let me see, I got a bunch of questions in at the last minute as well. Some people just practical things. Will I be offering this course in GMT? I won't be because I'm heading to Dublin next month, but I'm finishing my doctorate and I'm not doing any teaching. So, but any courses I do are always recorded, and there are always practice partners to be found in Spirit Space. And then if you do a course with me that's supposed to be live and you have to take it from the recordings, if you're doing the practices and you have questions, email them or post them on Facebook. And then what I do is I answer them or I address them at the top of the next class. So anybody, if you have to do this from a recording, you'll still be very much included in the class. Don't worry about that, right? Make a point of that, because people are everywhere, you know. And when I'm in Dublin, I end up having to teach from midnight to 2 a.m. just because everybody's used to me teaching in the Eastern time zone. So when I'm also trying to finish a defense of my thesis, I'm not going to be doing that this year. So we'll do it this other way. Right. I think that's sort of more or less the kind of gist of what most people were asking. You know, a few people did ask, is this something that can be used to help your own well-being? I'll say absolutely, because anything that puts you into a state of harmony and connection, and anything that helps you live from a place of intuition, is immediately going to take the anxiety out of your life. I was listening to him, studying the Bhagavad Gita at the moment, and there was somebody talking about it. The teacher was talking about it the other day, and he was saying, like, we've come to a point in our society where we have become so accustomed to anxiety that we now equate happiness with, you know, the removal of the things that were making us anxious. So he was saying, like, if your head is underwater and you're drowning, and you know, and this is your panic and your anxiety, and then all of a sudden you're able to get out of the water. Now you're not anxious about drowning again. It's like, but is that actually happy? Are you actually happy? Oh, I'm so happy I'm not drowning. Like we've come to that point in our society, you know. I'm happy because I'm not anxious, you know. And so it's just this, but isn't it true? Like, this is when you think about it, it's just like, oh, what a relief. This was a good day. I didn't have any nonsense to deal with, you know. It's not, that's not being anxious is not the same as being happy, right? When we start learning how to be and move in the world from this place of spiritual growth, it does actually change how we move in the world, how we perceive the world. It just, the connection itself lends a certain harmony and sense of safety that helps to offset a lot of the deluge of the world, you know. So in that sense, just in terms of your own well-being, absolutely, it would help. All right. So I think that is more or less, somebody's asking me, how does this actually work? That's not something I can answer easily. I think I've kind of answered it. It works because we actually go connecting with the power of our spirit, live from the place of power and presence in our own spirit, and in our awareness of our connection to the stream, the eternal and infinite stream of consciousness and the divine. And then we live from that place. When we start setting that as a foundation from where we build from, then we start layering in practices like, let's work with now from this space. What arises if we start working with our clairvoyance? What arises if we start working with our clairsentience? What arises if we start to remote view? There's great fun practice in remote viewing where two people sit together. I'll tell you that the story really, really quickly, because we're running out of time, so I need to move on. But I was doing remote viewing. This is a classic case of sitting with somebody, and we'd arranged two of us. We didn't know the person, but we partnered up, and we were going to sit at the exact same time and stare at a particular vision, this particular scene in front of our eyeballs, and try to telepathically convey that. So we do, I love this practice. We do these sorts of things, which are great fun, and telepathically convey what the scene I'm looking at to the other person. So I was sitting in Brooklyn, where I lived at the time, in this little green, tiny, I wouldn't even call it a park, a little green area. And we were supposed to sort of describe the scene and get a sense of where the other person was, right? And then we emailed each other afterwards. And so this person emailed me back, and she said, I feel like you were in the Catskills because I saw a brown bear, you know. And the irony was in the little patch of grass in Brooklyn I was sitting at, somebody had hung a brown teddy bear from a tree, right? Which was hilarious because she was seeing the brown teddy bear. Of course, but the mind comes in, equates brown teddy bear with I don't even know if they have brown bears in the Catskills. I think they're black bears. But the mind then gets into it and decides, oh, brown bear, got to be you know, up in the forest somewhere, you know. No, it was a teddy bear hanging out of a tree in Brooklyn, right? So, but you can see her telepathy was working. But then the mind got into it to add 2 and 2 to make 5. So this is why the attunement practices, the meditation practices, that sort of inner development when we come to this is important, because being able to separate what we are getting from extrasensory perception with the mind's compulsion to interfere and try to be useful, which it never is, that becomes part of the practice. And that's why when people say, how do I know if it's my intuition? You know, well, if it's calm, if it's peaceful, if your mind is not trying to create a narrative around it, it's your intuition. If it's anxiety, if you're fearful, if you're remorseful, it's anxiety. That's the head, the ego. These things become quite easy to recognize once we understand what it is to live from that more deeper spiritual connection. You know, all right. So that's it, I think, for the questions. That's all we can get through, because I do want to leave a few minutes to do a fun little practice at the end. Can anybody stay for an extra 10 minutes? If you can, we'll do the practice. Anybody just got anything they want to ask that I haven't covered very quickly before we get on to, because I do want to tell you how to do these practices, give you some options, and before we do the breakout rooms. Anybody, any quick questions to clarify? Yes, Issy? Oh, sorry, unmute. Let me unmute you. Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. My question is, there is a lot to cover, and I'm just wondering how you're going to cover that in just 5 weeks, because you said with Dean Edwards you spent a year just doing that practice, and I know, or I appreciate that is probably how much time is required, but in 5 weeks, how do you plan to?
Because we weren't sitting in class with Glyn every week for a year, so what happens is you learn the techniques, you learn the practices, you have the resources, and then you continue. First of all, it's not just showing up for 5 classes. You've got to keep doing, well, it really, you'll get out of it as much as you put into it. I always encourage people to do the practices every day during the week. So you'll be sitting with your attunement, you'll be sitting with your meditation, you'll be doing your practice partners once or twice a week. So you're working constantly for the 5 weeks of the class. Then you still have access to all the resources in the Facebook group to continue your development afterwards, you know. And so development never ends. So even Glyn's year, you're always developing. So what we do in this is lay those foundations, give you the teachings, lay the foundations, give you the practices that you can then take with you and keep working on. Because all of this work is not linear. We don't learn this and then learn this and then learn this. What we do is it's an inner journey. We do it again, and we do it deeper. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Don't know how to lower hands here. Anyone else before we get on? No? Good. All right. In case I forget, and for all of you dropping out, this is just a quick show you of the little course that we're doing. So this is the extrasensory perception. As I said, there's a $50 early bird until tomorrow. And if you're doing it from the recordings, we'll be sending you recordings and answering your questions each week. And so the idea is really to combine just your psychic senses, to combine all of the extrasensory perception and using it to really achieve new levels of consciousness, right? And so we're going to be working with clairvoyance, all of these things. You can read this is on the website. You can read, I'll put it in the chat. You can read it afterwards. So we're going to be working with all of this. And as I said, you'll have practices to do during the week as well. The more you do, the more you'll get out of it. And there is, if you go to the web, I'm not going to go through all this now, but there is actually fairly detailed, a little chat for me, why I think it's important, and then more details about what's inside the program. So I'd say have a look at that on your own time, and lots of feedback from other people, and then you can register. All right, so I'll give you this. I'll give you the link in the chat if you want to have a read of that all later. Where's my chat box? Disappeared. Chat box, here it is. So, right, so we are going to, there's the link to the page if you want to check that out afterwards. I won't go into all that now, you can read that yourselves. Right, so we're going to go do a little practice. So what I want to do for this is we only have time for one little practice because this is just a little fun, or this is just our August Spirit Space gathering. So what I want you to do is I'm going to give you the option to work either with your clairvoyance or your clairaudience, right? What I want you to do, and we don't have time to do this today, those of you who've all taken a class with me before know on the Spirit Space group that I showed you earlier on the website, under the meditations, there is one called, let me see if I can find it again. This is the one, where's this? The one that I recommend is the sort of foundational practice for your attunement. This one here, the power of the spirit. So that's only a 50. There's a bunch of different variations on it, but that's the fundamental one. And the more you can sit with that, the better, because what it does is it helps you to move into an altered state. All of this work is done in an altered state. None of this work is ever done while you're in your normal conscious everyday awareness, right? So we've got to take a breath, we've got to get settled, we move into an altered state of awareness. Any of you are interested in this afterwards, pop along, sit with that little 15-minute Power of the Spirit attunement practice. And if you want to do this practice again, hop onto the Facebook group and ask somebody to sit and practice with you, right? So what I want you to do is you don't have time to spend 15 minutes obviously moving into the power of the spirit, but what I want you all to do is just take a minute, take a breath, get settled, and just come into the moment, into the present, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those of you with your camera on into a breakout room with somebody else. And I'm going to give you the option of just sitting and just taking 2 minutes to sit and get settled. Anybody who doesn't want to go into a breakout room, you should just really log out before we open them. But I want to just give you, just take a minute to sit and get settled. And if you want to sort of work with your clairvoyance, just sit with your eyes very softly focused and just attune as you sit. Just invite the spirit of your partner to blend with you, all right? And then what I want you to do is feel how they feel. Feel how they feel. And as you feel how they feel, do any colors arise for you? So if you sit with somebody and you feel, oh, they feel surrounded in yellow, how does yellow make you feel? Right? So if yellow makes you feel very powerful and confident, that's your clairvoyance interpreting their energy field for you. And then you can say, this is what I feel about you. Right? And you may feel different colors. Does that make sense? Do you understand the clairvoyance? Anybody? No. If you don't, say, just put your hand up or just say whatever. Then for anybody who wants to work with clairaudience, what I would say is just sit, get present, just let the anxiety go, just wait until the mind is still and calm. Just take 1 or 2 minutes to do this, right? And then ask the person to say something fairly routine, like their name. Just say your name for me 3 times. And what you want to do is close your eyes and just listen to the waveform, right? The audio waveform that's there, and get a sense of what is arising from you. What do you hear? Because the thing is, when somebody just says their name, they're not actually thinking, they're just rattling it off. So you can get beyond just the words, just into the sound. It's the easiest way just to get to the sound, right? And you then can feel clairaudiently what arises for you on the sound. Do you feel somebody who feels happy or angry or anxious or this or that? And is there anything more to that you feel, right? This is a really powerful practice. When I'm doing this in Soul Path guidance, you can actually talk for an hour just on that, about their childhood, about their entire life, where they're going, about their soul's plan, their soul's purpose. You would be amazed how much information is there. But you don't have an hour, you've got 10 minutes, right? So will you just experiment with that? Review the practice for the first part. So it's just one practice. I'm leaving the choice with you to either work with your clairvoyance, to work with the color of their energy, or clairaudience, to listen to the waveform. Some people are more visual and some people are more auditory. So whichever one you're most comfortable with, choose that one practice, right? And so we'll just do 5 minutes each. So you just decide yourself, I'm just going to work with the color. You just sit there, get still, get quiet, attune to your partner. Just invite them in, just open your heart, filled with your natural compassion, and just invite them into to join you in that space. And then just send out that intention. You just want to feel how they feel in colors. Does that make sense? Mary, where's Mary? There, is that okay? Is that okay? Good. And then for the clairaudient people, just be open. Well, I'm going to say the most important thing here is to be open. You would be astonished at what might come up. Now, for the partners, what I'm going to say is just say, no, I would say if you're doing, you're probably best at this practice, since it's just a quick practice, probably to keep your eyes closed. This is fewer distractions. For the partner, just say yes or no, understand, or I'm not sure. So be very, very gentle and supportive, right? Because it's a very quick practice. There's been much teaching in the way of it, but I just wanted to have you have this little experience, all right? So I'm just going to give you 10 minutes. Well, we do 12, so just take 1 minute just to get settled, just to tune, and just open your heart. Just the simplest thing, open your heart, extend your love and compassion to your partner, even though you don't know them, you're all part of the one, right? And just ask for information. Any information that is helpful, can be helpful to my partner, to be shared with me, and just feed it back to them, let them know, all right? And just work for a few minutes and then switch over. So just 5 minutes each. I'll just say on the thing, okay, that's 5 minutes, switch over, and then we'll come back and we'll just wrap up for the day. All right. So Trisha, Nancy, Nanika, and Catherine, if you want, Catherine, if you want to stay, can you turn your cameras on? Or if you don't, that's okay too. If you'd like to leave, we won't hold it against you. All right. I'm going to have to put you in the waiting room. Anybody who doesn't have a camera on, I'm going to put in the waiting room. We've got an odd number. No, we'd have an even number. All right. So I'm going to put anybody without their camera in the waiting room, because it's not fair to other people to be working with a blank screen, right? Okay, so good. Okay, breakout rooms. Where do they go? Here we go. How many people are there? 8 rooms. Okay, everyone good? So just take a breath, get settled. There is no tigers chasing you. There is no need to get anxious. Just have fun with this, all right? Just as a very short little fun practice, just have fun with it. And who cares? Who cares what comes up, all right? Nobody's bet the farm on this, okay? All right, I'll let you know when 5 minutes is up, and then I'll bring you back when it's time. You don't need to bring yourselves back. The room, you'll get a message saying the room is about to close in a minute. Don't just ignore it. It'll just stay where you are. It'll come back automatically. All right, good. Perfect. Off you go. Have fun. Catherine, did you want to do the exercise? Because they're all in breakout rooms already. Just everyone, just remember to be very gracious with your partner as they're working. Everyone, just remember to be very gracious to your partner as they're working. Everyone, just finishing up now and switching over if you haven't already done so. The room's automatically closed, so they'll be back in a minute. Three, two, one. Here they all are now. All right, everyone, how did you get on? Did you have fun? Was it fun? Oh, smiling faces, such a joy to see. That's marvelous. How do our ladies of three ladies get on? As it turned out, where's Ray gone? Ray lost his partner, so Ray was by himself, and then we had three in the other room. Such is the nature of Zoom. How did our ladies of three get on? Did you all have a chance to do a bit of a practice? You did? Okay, good. All right, so, well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you have fun. Were you surprised at what you were able to sense, to pick up, color, see, or hear? Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Once you settle into the space, right? So you'll all be flying by the time you spend a couple of weeks sitting in your attunement practices. Right, so that was lovely. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. We need to wrap up. If anyone's got any last minute questions, comments, or observations before we, don't forget the little survey at the end. And don't forget, if you are interested in doing a full-on training, foundational training in this for 5 weeks with me, pop along to the link I sent you earlier. Half the space is already gone, so just bear that in mind if you are interested in taking it. But we'll leave the $50, we'll leave the early bird until tomorrow anyway, for those of you who are in other time zones who are going to be listening to this tomorrow morning on the recording, just to be fair to everyone. Mary. Oh, sorry. There you go. Oh, what's this? Here we go. Mute. Did you get that? I'm asking you to unmute.
There we go. Thank you. Yes, I got that. Just a real quick question. It was a great exercise and we each got something. And I wanted to use the clairaudience. And it was interesting that when she said, Griff said her name, and I was tuning in, I was not just hearing something, but I was seeing. So it was like this combination of seeing her and she verified what I was seeing and then I was hearing something. Then after we got off and she was with Stephanie, all of a sudden I heard music like relating to her. Like afterwards it stuck. Is that normal?
There's no such thing as normal in the supernatural, paranormal world, right? All of our senses are all working all the time. It's like our physical senses. We're never just seeing stuff. We're also aware of stuff. We're also hearing stuff. Our brain filters out the vast majority of the information available to us because it has to, because it couldn't possibly process everything. So when we're working with extrasensory perception, it's the same thing. Everything's firing all the time. When we're working on development, we try to hone on one just so that we're developing all of them, but ultimately everything works at the same time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Good. So lots of thank yous to everybody for their partners in the room. Isn't that lovely? So tell everyone, if you check the chat, everyone's saying thank you to their partners for their lovely work. Yes, Trisha. Oh, sorry. This is what happens when I don't have tech person. We'll forget these things. Did it come up? Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have sign language. So when you're doing a photo reading of a deceased loved one, or you have one of their objects, I've heard it said that we're using psychic ability and not mediumship ability, but I'm thinking like it's both. What would you have to say?
Psychic. What that is called psychometry.
Right. Even the photo.
Yeah. You don't, I would never, ever in mediumship hold an object or work with a photo, because there's a very, very subtle difference. You need to be very, very well trained to recognize the difference between mediumship information and psychic information. Honestly, and I'm not trying to put down mediums, but I cannot tell you the amount of mediums I've sat in front of who told me they have been communicating with my loved ones and they have been working psychically. And so when you're doing psychometry, you're almost guaranteed that by the virtue of the fact that you're using psychometry, either with the photo, you're either psychometrizing the photo or the object, you're working psychically. If you're working mediumistically, you do not need anything. You should not have anything. It should be just whatever they're choosing to share with you.
Okay, because sometimes in a group, somebody will put a photo on our circle on Zoom or something, and then we read that. So that's psychic. And what about if they just give us a first name?
You shouldn't need anything at all.
Okay, gotcha.
The minute you start giving somebody information, you put them into their head. Because what happens immediately, you got a name or there's a name. Whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, your mind is processing for associations.
Yeah.
So when I do mediumship, I don't want any information. I want to know nothing. You're just steer clear of it. Unless you are very, very, very advanced in your mediumship, it is very easy, and everybody still pick up some psychic information, but when you're very well trained and very advanced, oh, I think I picked that up myself, not from your loved one. You need to be ethically, you need to be able to say that. So no.
Okay.
I know there's people all over the place doing all sorts of stuff in circles, but I don't run them. But no pictures, no objects. That's all psychometry. That's all psychic work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up.
So if you're in a mediumship circle, just send out the thought to them. You don't want to engage here. You want to engage there first.
Sure.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Anyone else before we go? No. You're all marvelous. You're all going to swan off into your radiant. Do you know, I just was saying, I post all these cute little pictures of my cats that drives everybody mad. But I discovered that Instagram has an AI thing where it removes the background and puts my cats in all these really fabulous backgrounds. So I started posting them on Instagram stories every day just for the fun of it, But there's a little cat. Oh, there we go. My cats are quiet now. They weren't kicking around earlier.
I like the live ones, but we can't have them yet. So
right. So what was that? I was going to say. Oh no, it's gone out of my head. What I was going to say about the cats, the cat video. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as I click log out. Right. Well, yes, Griff. Oops, I need to get you unmuted here. Did you get it? Yeah.
Yes, now I did. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question here at the last minute. I did try and sign up for your ESP class, Karen, and then I realized it was from 1 till 3 a.m. for me, and thought, God, that, will I be able to stay awake for that? And then now what you were saying at the beginning of today was, the important thing, obviously, is the practice. And I'm thinking, well,
no, I said the important thing is the teachings, but the teachings have to be coupled with practice.
but you were saying, like reading about it or watching a recording or whatever that's not going to get you anywhere. You need to do the practice, which I appreciate. But then I was wondering, it seems to me that a lot of people are from America, and being in Europe.
No, there's not a lot there's a lot of people from lots of places here. We've got people. Okay,
so you don't think it'll be like an issue for me to find someone to work with through either a spirit space or through the Facebook group?
The reason for this is because I have people in Australia, New Zealand, India. We have people in Greece. We have people all over Europe. We've got lots of people in Ireland and England. We've got somebody here from Denmark this morning, and then we've got people. Me. Oh, that's you. And then we've got people all across America. I think we've got somebody here from Brazil. The whole point, the way these are structured, is because people are everywhere. And so the way I set them up is that we do recordings for everyone registered. You listen to the recordings, but it's the same as a live class. The only difference is that instead of getting immediate feedback from me after a practice, when you come back from your practice period like today, you have to post it on Facebook, or you have to email it to me so I can answer your questions at the beginning of the next class, so you can get the recording. You'll get your answers in the recordings. But the thing is that you can listen to the recording for the teachings. But then you got to go, like the people in the live class, you got to go find practice partners on Spirit Space. Spirit Space is not just this class. There are 360 students in Spirit Space from different classes. So you can practice with anybody. It doesn't have to be somebody from the ESP class. It could be anybody from any class. You just say, this is what I'm practicing, and they'll sit for you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
The reason I stress Spirit Space is because everybody's used to me and used to my teaching. So you're not going out and somebody saying, here's a photograph of my Auntie May, read that from it. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to run into that. So you're not going to run into, so it's all being taught within a certain lineage of training that I've kind of come out of. So you'll be finding people who are basically on the same page as you. Even if it's a psychic class or medium class, a healing class, trance class, doesn't matter. You know, people know just to be able to sit for other people. So you don't both have to be sitting to do, oh, let's both do a clairvoyant exercise. One person could be doing a trance speaking exercise and you're sitting for them. And you could be, I want to just do a clairvoyant exercise, but they understand it. So they're able to work with you. Does that make sense? See, it's actually good that way also, because it mixes it up for you a bit too. Yeah. Trisha, and then we need to go.
Yeah. It just occurred to me, I'm wondering on your remote viewing, are you teaching the old-fashioned coordinate viewing or the extended remote viewing or both?
There's only so much
Or are you
remote viewing you can do in a 5-week ESP class, but I'm going to be teaching remote viewing sort of along the Russell Targ lines.
the coordinated thing, the coordinated remote viewing where they do the number and then you
No.
do a squiggle.
No,
You know,
not going
that
to be.
old
No, you would need to
kind.
do an entire 5-6 weeks in remote viewing to get into that. We're going to be doing remote viewing where we're going to be sitting for each other to work with telepathy through remote viewing. So we'll be, because,
Oh,
you know, yeah, no, remote viewing takes months and months of work to learn. So we're going to, like the bear I told you earlier, we'll be working with those sorts of fun exercises. So you're not going to be sitting there doing you don't have to start doing remote viewing sketching and stuff. That would be an entire dedicated remote viewing class.
Tedious. Yeah, I like the extended remote viewing, which is more what you did with the teddy bear thing in the park.
Yeah, so we're going to be using clairvoyance to work with our remote viewing. And so no, this is not a remote viewing class. We will be covering remote viewing in it, but we won't, you know, no, I studied remote viewing. It takes forever and I hate it, to be honest. So I don't
like that coordinated stuff, but I took David
the thing
extended too, and that is more like what we do here in our practices.
Yeah, we're doing this for spiritual growth, not to find criminals or crime scenes. I do teach psychic detective work, and remote viewing, and that is very, very, very precise. But that's not what we're doing in this class. This class, the primary orientation for this class is spiritual development and spiritual growth, and allowing all of the rest of the perception to arise out of that place. So we are not chasing hoodlums around the country for law enforcement. Right, is that everyone good? Did you all have fun? Did you all enjoy it? All right, good. So if you want to do some more practices, hop on Spirit Space. But if you want to really delve into it, join me for the class. And I'm only teaching 2 more classes this year, this one and an advanced mediumship class closer to Christmas. And that's it, because I have to finish my doctorate this year. So that's going to be it. So I hope you can join me for that. So don't forget, the early bird is until tomorrow, and don't forget the survey at the end before you take off for your lunch or your dinner, wherever your breakfast, wherever you are. All right. All right. So perfect. So I will see you. We'll see you all. Oh, I have a really exciting. We have a really exciting September live. I'm going to have a former retired police officer with credentials down his arm coming in to talk about psychic detection, because I will be launching my psychic detective course soon. So that will be super interesting. So we'll have 2 people next month for that. So if you want to come along, but I'll announce that as we come upon it. All right, beautiful. Have a great week. Enjoy your practices, and I will hopefully see you all soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great weekend all. Ciao, ciao.